Hello friends, this is Fox Nival Studios. What if now we are here with new chapter. What if Naruto had powerful bloodline before starting story? Please subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for new update. Coming home, Shizune was doing her early morning rounds and decided to pop in to see how Naruto and Tayuya were doing after yesterday's confrontation with Tsunade. Even though she knew that her sensei wouldn't hold it against the genin, Tsunade knew how to hold a grudge. As she lightly tapped on the door to the room, she opened the door slowly and peered inside. Tayuya's bed was the first things Tot entered her line of sight as she entered, and found it empty. For a moment, the young woman began to panic, thinking the girl had made a run for it during the night. But a light snoring attracted her attention to the corner of the room where Naruto's bed was, and found a sight that she would not soon forget. There, curled up on the bed, was the missing redhead, with Naruto curled around her protectively. Shizune had to bite her lip to keep herself from squealing aloud from the sight of the pair. Tayuya was curled up in a ball with her legs tucked close to her chest while she used her arms as pillows, facing Naruto. The blonde himself had his arms around the girl loosely, his chin resting on the top of her head, and a silly little grin on his face. Shizune stumbled back out into the hall, nearly laughing as the adorable sight stuck with her. "Oh, what I wouldn't give for a camera right now," she squeaked, hopping up on her toes excitedly. "Tsunade's going to be sorry she missed this." "Missed what, Shizune-san?" Kakashi asked, appearing behind the woman and startling her. Giving a startled yelp, she swung her clipboard out instinctively, only for him to catch it easily, giving her a slight eye smile. "If that had hit me, I'd have been bored to death. Get it?" Shizune gave him a sour look. "That's all you could come up with?" Kakashi shrugged. "Would you rather I pulled you into a broom closet?" Shizune flushed, but kept her mouth shut. Truth be told, she would have enjoyed such an encounter, but she wasn't about to tell him that. "What are you doing here so early in the morning?" "Can't I come wish my favorite medic good morning?" Kakashi asked, visibly smiling beneath his mask as Shizune swiped at him with her board again half-heartedly, a small smirk on her face. "Donnie, you try to con me, Hataki," she smirked at the man. "I know Tsunade-sama gave you new orders for Team 7, and I bet I know who's going to be replacing Sakura-chan when she's too bone-tired from Shisho's training regiment." Kakashi sighed dejectedly. "Alas, fair maiden has figured me out." He sighed dramatically, causing a giggle to burst from her. "As it so happens, I came to tell the lovely little couple that they are released into my custody to check out the old Uzumaki embassy," he said, smiling. "Legally, all of the property belonged to Kushina-sama, and, by inheritance, Naruto. It's quite a nice piece of land." Shizune smiled at that. "That would be wonderful since Naruto-kun lives in that horrible apartment," she said, beaming at him before she checked her chart. "Tayuya-san is scheduled to have another healing session this afternoon, so you're free to do whatever you want until then. Naruto-kun's pretty much back to normal, but Tsunade-sama's just keeping him here to keep her company since they get along so well." "Them?" Kakashi asked, jerking his thumb at the door. "Get along? Are we talking about the same pair of noisy gakis that were terrorizing Tsunade-sama yesterday?" Shizune let a sly smirk cross her face. "Wanna bet me on that?" "What's the wager?" Kakashi asked. Shizune shrugged. "It's a win for you either way," she said, smiling up at him while batting her eyes at the masked jonin. "You'll get your little closet quickie, but if I'm right, you lose the mask, and no genjutsu this time," she said, and poked him in the chest. "Do we have a deal?" "Deal." Kakashi smiled, "but I feel bad because there's not way you're seeing my face just yet." Shizune smirked and cracked the door open again, finding Naruto and Tayuya still asleep, and curled up together. Kakashi poked his head in with a shushing gesture from Shizune, and found his one visible eye widening. "Well, that is surprising. At least we don't have to worry about the Uzumaki clan continuing on if this is any indication." Shizune nodded, smiling. "It would be nice if Naruto actually had someone like that in his life," she said, stepping out of the room and closing the door quietly. "Hinata-chan is a nice girl, but she's far too timid around him to get anywhere." "I agree," Kakashi sighed, following Shizune down the hall, eyeing the nearest closet. "Just how early are you doing these checkups, anyway?" Shizune looked at him over her shoulder. "Oh, I do these about 30 minutes before the nurses do. It keeps me, kya." Shizune soon found herself slammed up against the wall. "Kakashi? That just means we've got 15 minutes before some nosy nurse comes along." He grinned. Actually grinned as he pulled his mask down, which made the young woman blush. "What? A promise is a promise, after all. Asterisk. Shizune giggled as she reached a hand up to touch his face. As she had thought, his face was very angular, somewhat like his father, only he had more defining features he must have gotten from his mother, such as the little beauty spot just under the left side of his lips. With his Hitai 8 pulled down over his left eye, even if it was meant to block his Sharingan, it gave him a roguish look to him. She reached up on her toes and kissed the side of his mouth. Why do you hide such a handsome face all the time? She wondered before lowered his head to her lips as he fumbled around for the doorknob. She moaned as he picked her up around her waist with one arm, and pushed the door open with the other, locking it from inside. So, he said against her lips, 15 minutes? T20, Shizune moaned out, his lips going lower toward her neck. It's a small staff today. Oh, that's the spot. She shivered as he trailed his lips down her neck, moving her kimono out of the way. Kakashi grinned. It's been a while, hasn't it? A sigh escaped her lips as she hitched her left leg over his hip, pressing him against her, letting her feel just how ready he was. Seeing as they were strapped for time, she decided foreplay was out of the question, unless they wanted an audience. She reached between them and clasped him through his pants, causing him to groan. Shizune giggled and parted her kimono for him, granting him access to the mesh top underneath. Rather than go for it, though, the one-eyed Jonin chose to bring both of her legs around his waist, reaching down to free himself, and nudged her underwear out of the way. He wasn't gentle when he pushed into her, her back thumping against the wall of the closet, shocking a laugh out of her as she moaned from his entry, her hands reaching up into his wild hair as he began a quick pace that left her breathless. Fast and hard, just what she wanted after so long. Gods, you're so tight. He groaned as he moved. Shizune gasped as he pounded into her. Why you've been so busy lately. She ground her hips against him in time with each of his thrust. I'm close. He grunted in response and kept up his pace, feeling his own release approaching. He crushed his mouth against hers as he ground against her, her inner walls clamping down on him, forcing his own release to burst forth. Shizune mewled against his lips, her body shivering in delight as the pair of them sank to the floor. Asterisk, she sighed against him, smiling in satisfaction. I never get tired of this. Kakashi chuckled. You mean getting pulled into closets, or just everything in general? Shizune. A voice roared, making them both freeze. Oh crap. Shizune scrambled up, desperately trying to fix her clothes. This is bad. If Tsunade catches us, I'll be chasing Tora for the rest of my life. Kakashi hissed, trying to think of a way out of the mess they were in. Perfume. I can't find my perfume. Shizune whimpered as she searched her pockets before spotting the bottle on the floor. She sighed and sprayed herself down to try and drown out any proof of their activities. Kakashi opened the door and peeked out. All right, the coast is clear, he told her. Let's get out of here before. Before what? Tsunade said smugly as she leaned up against the wall beside the door. Tsunade burst out laughing as the pair ducked back inside the closet, tapping the door with her knuckles lightly. Make sure you clean up properly before finishing your rounds. Shizune Kai. Inside the closet, Shizune blushed crimson, and Kakashi. Remember to take Naruto and Tayuya to the property like I told you, got it? Yes, ma'am. Both groaned in embarrassment. Tsunade chuckled and made her way toward Naruto's room to wake him, but she couldn't resist at least one more jibe. Oh, and Shizune. Shizune shyly poked her head out of the closet. Why yes, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade grinned at the woman. Next time, use one of the empty rooms. They have privacy seals installed to tune out noise. She grinned as a mortified expression crossed the poor girl's face. How could I forget that? Fwing, Naruto and Tayuya looked out over the large compound. The area badly grown up with weeds and small shrubs. Man, it looks like no one's been here for years. The blonde said, moving a tuft of grass that was hiding a stone walkway. It'd take me all day to clean this place up even with shadow clones. Tayuya, standing on a pair of crutches, nodded in agreement. What a dump. And it's all yours. Kakashi grinned behind his mask, far more cheerful than he usually was for some reason. Naruto sighed, looking out over the land again. There was a large shrine at the back of the property that looked in decent condition, but other than that, what few houses there were, everything was in need of repair. The house that would take the least amount of time to fix, it seemed, was a large Shinto-style building that had 2 stories, and a rather large inner compound. In the center of it looked to be a large oak tree, probably a garden plant. At least he hoped that was the case, since it would be a hassle to cut down such a large tree when it had grown through a house. "We're supposed to live here?" Tayuya asked uncertainly. "Great. Fan-fucking-tastic. I land myself in a powerful clan, and find out the only property they own is an overgrown." "Come on, Tayuya-chan." Naruto smiled back at her. "It's just a little work, and we'll have ourselves a nice place to live. Way better than that nasty old apartment I lived in for so long." Kakashi smiled behind his mask. "Are you sure you don't want a few more genin teams to help out?" he asked. "I'm sure that the others would be more than happy to help." Naruto grinned hugely. "Nah, I got this," he said, forming his signature jutsu's hand sign. "I could use the workout from lying in the hospital for so long," he said. "And running around with Tayuya-chan chasing you was being lazy?" Kakashi asked. His eyebrow raised as Tayuya snorted. "Shadow clone jutsu!" Naruto roared, and hundreds of puffs of smoke popped into existence. Tayuya looked on in amazement. Seeing so many advanced clones was rare for someone as young as Naruto, who was only a year younger than herself, as she found out from Suande earlier that morning when it was made known to her that she was indeed an Uzumaki half-blood just like him. Unfortunately, for some reason that was left unexplained, while Naruto had an insane amount of chakra even without the Kyuubi adding to it, Tayuya had average chakra for the rank of Jonin. Speaking of which, why the hell did she have to bust me back down to Genin? She grumbled as she hobbled through the grass toward the main house where Naruto's army of clones was beginning to clear away the tall grass and fallen limbs from the surrounding trees. Standard procedure for a newly inducted shinobi, Kakashi smiled. "Depending on how high your individual skills are, we rank you where we think you would be best at. And for me that's the bottom." Tayuya growled, pissed beyond belief. "I'll be damned if I have to work my way through some pansy-ass D-rank missions to earn some real cash." Kakashi sighed. "Don't worry. My team has some rotten luck when it comes to missions. Our first C rank was upgraded to a within a couple of hours of leaving the village, and the only reason we continued with it was because they all insisted on it. Man, this place is huge." One of Naruto's clones laughed as it scurried about inside the mansion. "There's like 15 bedrooms in this house." "Oi, get back to work," yelled a clone that was cutting grass. "Don't be a slacker." "Look who's talking," yelled a clone on the roof that was tossing off broken tiles. "Hey, we need some stuff to fix the screen doors," one of the clones inside the house said. Tayuya shook her head. "Man, those things are useful," she said as she sat herself down on the porch, rubbing her injured leg. "Wonder if I could do it." Kakashi shrugged as he watched the clones work, making fast work of the yard as he saw many of them making piles of limbs and grass in cleared-off areas. Shadow clones are unique among cloning techniques, because the jutsu produces solid clones, and feed information back to the caster when they are destroyed or dispersed. They're really good for information gathering, and training with multiple jutsu. "Yeah, I know all that." Tayuya sighed. Orochimaru knows the same technique, but never taught anyone else because he liked keeping them to himself unless he was teaching someone he deemed special. She twirled her finger in the air in irritation. "All I ever got was genjutsu training and flute lessons." Kakashi smiled behind his mask. "Still, that is something that you were regarded as one of his best kunoichi when all you had was genjutsu to fight with. And look where that landed me," she said, stretching her arms above her head. "Got myself blown to hell by a blonde bitch and her lazy-ass boy toy. And now here I am, with a broken leg, and a ticking time bomb on my neck if Orochimaru ever decides to find me. Jiraiya is working tirelessly to figure out a way to remove it," Kakashi assured her. "Once he does, you and Sasuke aren't the only ones that will need to be looked after." Another kunoichi in this village was afflicted by the same mark that Sasuke now has on his neck, but apparently it's slightly different than his. Tayuya looked up at him. "If you're talking about that Anko woman I kept hearing about back in Auto, then I've got a pretty good idea why." She said, "That seal he put on her was the first one he ever used on a live human, and all others that came after that one were different because hers doesn't change her like mine does in the stage 3 mark." Kakashi nodded. "I'd almost forgotten that you're classified as a level 3 seal user," he said. "Have you ever seen one of the seals removed?" "Actually, I have," Tayuya said, surprising the Jonin. "Thing about it is, though, it's not only dangerous, but it takes a long time to do. Orochimaru did it once, successfully, but he was completely drained of chakra, almost to the point of absolute zero. It's the most vulnerable I'd ever seen him until this whole thing with his arms, she said. How was it done? Kakashi asked, but the girl shrugged. He used a high-level seal that I'd never seen before, she said, thinking back on that particular day. The subject complained about the seal causing him discomfort, and when Orochimaru had a look, he realized that the mark was incompatible with the host. Normally, he would have left him to die, but the guy had a unique Kekkei Genkai that he wanted to gain control of once he switched bodies, so he removed in favor of another seal. Kakashi nodded, tapping his chin as he sat beside her. I see. Did you see how the seal worked? Tayuya smirked. Yeah, I did, she said. When he started, the curse mark just started peeling away in layers. From what I saw, that's the only way to remove the seal without triggering the kill command etched in. It's the first thing to go, and then you're free to have a go at the real mark. But it takes a hell of a lot of time, and even more chakra to use a sealing method like that. How many layers would Anko's mark have? He asked for the woman's sake. Tayuya sighed and leaned back on her arms, and laid flat on the floor. Being the first of its kind, I'm gonna say that it's a 2-stage mark, instead of a 3-stage like mine. The first gives you a small power boost while covering the area afflicted by the mark. Stage 2 is the same, except it pushes a drug into the body to keep the user wanting more, and stage 3 is the full transformation. She gestured to herself. When I change, my skin turns dark, and I grow horns like an ogre, and I have golden eyes just like Orochimaru does when he's fighting a powerful opponent. All of us in the Sound 4 had a refined stage 3 mark, while others were less so. We were more in control of ourselves even after the drug dose. Kakashi grimaced as this mark sounded more and more nasty by the moment. What about Sasuke's? Tayuya smirked at him, wondering when you were gonna ask. She grinned. His is a little different than most. Besides the work he did on Anko, there have only been 2 he gave the Curse of Heaven to, and both of them have had an extremely rare and powerful Kekkei Genkai. The first was Kimimaro Kagaya, who used the dead bone pulse to make weapons out of his own bones. And the other was your little spaz of an Uchiha. What's the difference? Kakashi asked, puzzled. She shrugged again. Every mark has essentially the same 3 marks, she said, holding up her hand and ticking them off on her fingers: obedience, power, and the drug introduction. But when Orochimaru places that particular mark on someone, that means he's chosen that person to be a potential vessel. Those marked with that one have the power bit doubled, making the draw of the mark almost irresistible because the drug being pushed into the system also has a small amount of enzymes from Orochimaru mixed in, making them drawn to Orochimaru himself, not just the power. Removing one of them would cause the mark itself to fight back, making it way too fucking difficult for anyone but Orochimaru to do because the mark would know its master. I see, Kakashi sighed. So, in a sense, Sasuke has a stage 4 mark? I guess so, Tayuya said. There are subjects that have the rare stage 4 on them, but they usually don't live long enough to hold any merit. She said, shivering in recollection. They became stuck in the stage 3 form, almost always going insane with bloodlust, or just plain dying right off the bat. Some of them even turned to stone. Hearing that, Kakashi almost immediately knew what the power part of those marks were. Senjutsu, that explains a lot. Are there such cases as a stage 5? Tayuya remained quiet, sitting up to watch Naruto and his clones. There was one. But there's no chance of something like that happening again. What do you mean? Kakashi asked, curious. Tayuya sighed. All of us that have a curse mark change our forms in one way or another. If I had a stage 4 mark, I'd bulk up like an ogress, probably be taller, and twice as powerful as I was in the 3rd stage. She said, when Orochimaru created the 5th stage, that part became unstable. The one person that could control himself in that state rose up against Orochimaru, and came really fucking close to killing him. See, in that state, say, I used it. I wouldn't look like an ogress, I'd actually be one, in the flesh. Kakashi nodded. And, this man, what did he become? Tayuya smiled. The only thing that could ever hope to challenge a viper is a falcon. She said, smiling fondly. But even if the falcon swoops down, and catches the viper, it'll still get bitten by the viper and die from its venom. The Jonin looked at her for a moment before sighing. Sorry for bringing up a sore subject. He was obviously important to you. Closest thing I had to family until recently, Tayuya said. He was older than me when we met. I was only 7, and he was already 15. Funny thing, he was a samurai from Tetsu no Kuni, and he had a dojutsu as well. Did he? Kakashi asked. Tayuya nodded. It's how he almost beat Orochimaru. She said, it didn't have a name, and he was the only carrier of it. Orochimaru wanted to use him to breed a new line of dojutsu users, but he refused. After he received his mark, he fought tooth and nail to keep alive and tried to escape every chance he got. Finally, Orochimaru got tired of it, and went to him. And that's just what he wanted. His dojutsu forced the target's killing intent back unto themselves, and made them gut themselves whenever he turned his gaze on them. Orochimaru nearly fell right into it. But apparently meeting Uchiha Itachi made him more cautious around people with dojutsu. I can guess what happened next. Kakashi nodded. What was his name? Tayuya smiled fondly as she thought of the boy. I always used to call him Gen Nisama to annoy him, but his name was Genosuke. Unknown location. Orochimaru ground his teeth in agony as his arms bled in their blackened form. This is taking far too long. He growled. Sasuke will have to wait. He rose from his seat. Should I take too much longer, that blasted Shinigami will claim the rest of this body just as it consumed my arms. He staggered into the hall where he found his white-haired assistant. Orochimaru-sama, shall I prepare the subjects? Yes, the man hissed in pain. While I would have liked to have Sasuke as soon as he arrived, it appears the many of the Sound Four have perished. He growled, I can no longer feel their marks. Only Sasuke's and Tayuya's remain. Perhaps they are on their way. Kabuto suggested, who knows? Tayuya-chan could have defeated Konoha's forces? Orochimaru scoffed. I highly doubt that foul-mouthed brat was able to defeat an entire squad. He said, you said it yourself after sending Kimimaro-kun out. Konoha wanted their precious Uchiha prince back. It's unfortunate, then, that Sasuke-kun won't be joining us, Kouto said. Sighing, I had hoped to examine his Sharingan. I could have used them in my research I took over from that fellow Danzo sent to us. Kido-san, wasn't it? Orochimaru grinned. Yes, his idea of artificial Kekkei Genkai was intriguing, he said, licking his lips. Such a shame that he was sending Danzo information on us, or else I may have let him live a little longer. Now. Go down and find me a decent vessel, the strongest one we have, preferably with a Kekkei Genkai. Back at the Uzumaki embassy. The area was starting to look like a clan compound thanks to Naruto's hard work. When Tayuya returned from having her leg worked on, it was to find the blonde finishing up the yard, and setting fire to a large pile of debris. Wow, you've really been working, huh? Naruto looked up at her and smiled when he saw that she was standing, albeit leaning, on two legs instead of her crutches. Yeah, I finally got everything cleaned up around here. He jerked his thumb toward the main house. Turns out this place had some building supplies stored in the cellars, so I got the clones to fix up the inside and get everything ready for us to live here. He grinned brightly at her. Great, huh? Fuck, yeah, it is. Tayuya grinned. This is way better than sleeping in a cell, or a underground like Orochimaru's compounds. She said, taking in the area, and noted that all of the tall grass had been taken down, as well as the wild shrubbery. Hey, you know I could have helped, right? She said, scowling, you didn't have to do all the work. Naruto shrugged. No big deal. I worked up a really good sweat, so I feel great either way. That's good, I guess, she said, but I don't like being considered lazy, so next time you try so build or clean, tell me and I'll help. Naruto grinned. You're sure in a good mood, Tayuya-chan, he said, laughing when she scowled at him. Something good happen? Tayuya smirked for a moment, and pulled a Konoha Hitai 8 from her pocket. Check it out, shithead, I'm officially a Konoha Kunoichi. Hey, great. Naruto yelled excitedly. Now you can help us track down Orochimaru. After I get this mark off of me. Dumb ass. Tayuya pointed to her neck. Don't forget that prick could still control me, or even kill me if I was close enough to him, so no way in hell am I going near him until that old pervert figures out a way to get rid of it. Naruto sighed. Well, I guess we have to wait around on Pervy Sage until he gets his act together. He grinned. Wanna go grab a bite? Tayuya nodded. I could eat, but can we do something besides ramen? I need something more substantial. Sure, he said, smiling. Akamichi's barbecue is only a few blocks away, and they never turn me out, and I really want to hear about how Choji's doing, he said as he made his way toward her, and saw her stumble. You okay? Yeah, my leg's just a little weak, still, she said, then glared. I'm not gonna let you carry me if that's what you want to say. Naruto smirked. Ah, you know you liked it. Ah, shut up, fucktard. Tayuya roared, and began chasing after him as he blurred past her. Hey! Get back here, she roared, tearing after him, her weakened leg forgotten. What is it with you and running all the time? I usually don't have angry redheads chasing me, he laughed. Let's get this show on the road. Jiraiya tapped on the door to Tsunade's office, and let himself in. Morning, honey. Yao. He yelped, ducking underneath a thrown scroll. What's the big idea? Jiraiya snapped. I just came to ask if. The answer is no, no, and still no. Tsunade roared, glaring daggers at the man. I've already told you that letting Naruto into the restricted section of the library is out of the question until he's at least Jonin. Jiraiya growled and crossed his arms. The kid can handle it, Haim. It's not like he's gonna go for the first triple S scroll he finds. Tsunade scowled at him. You're lucky we don't have anything that powerful save for my granduncle's reanimation technique. She sighed, frowning. And why can't you just start out by teaching him some of your techniques? Your chameleon technique would do him a great deal as far as stealth goes? Jiraiya shook his head. It's not that I don't want to teach him anything, it's that I can't, yet. He said, aside from the Rasengan and the Toad contract, many of my jutsu call for great chakra control. And he has those new eyes, so he needs a genjutsu specialist to help him with that. He said, sighing, he needs something else to keep him going, and the Rasengan, I'm afraid to say, is no longer enough. That can wait, Tsunade said, looking at the man. Tell me, did you receive the info Kakashi and I sent to you on the curse marks? Jiraiya nodded, crossing his arms. I did, and I can tell you that the technique Orochimaru used was likely based off an Uzumaki seal I know something about. Tsunade looked at him hopefully. Then you can remove it. Her hopes fell when he began to shake his head. What? Why not? Because the seal I'm thinking about does take an insane amount of chakra, and a fair amount of control, he said, sighing in disappointment. Fact of the matter is, I don't have near the amount of chakra it takes to get the seal to work for me, let alone to use it. Tsunade groaned. Then there's no chance of us removing those damned marks from those three. She sighed. This is horrible. I said that I didn't have the right amount of chakra, Jiraiya said, grinning, but there's a certain young genin I know of that has insane amounts of chakra, and has an insurmountable chakra battery he can draw on if need be. Tsunade raised her brow at him. You're talking about Naruto? She asked, but he doesn't even have any knowledge of sealing jutsu, and you expect him to use an advanced technique? He's got his shadow clones to help with that, Jiraiya said offhandedly. What could take 10 years could 10 days with a lot of clones to help out. If he masters it, then we can use it without risk. Problem solved. Tsunade sighed, massaging her temple. You're way too flippant about this, you know that? Naruto is not a quick study. I know, Jiraiya grinned. He's a kinesthetic learner, meaning training is his study. If I show him what to do, then he'll learn it by doing it himself, and keep at it with his shadow clones. Tsunade nodded. Yes, that could work, but I don't want you filling his entire days with training, she said, sighing. Whatever he is, he's still just a 13-year-old boy, even if he's a shinobi. Jiraiya shrugged. Hey, I'll do my best with the kid since we're staying in the village. The aging sage smiled. I already promised him that I'd stay around for him like I should have the day I found out he was alive. His smile turned into a full-blown grin. So you'll have my handsomeness to keep things interesting around here, my little slug princess. Yipe. He ducked under a paperweight. Now what did I do? Do not call me slug princess, Tsunade roared, grabbing a desk chair. Do you know how nasty that sounds? Jiraiya probably should have kept his mouth shut, but the woman had left herself wide open for it. Depends on whose slug it is. He cackled and bolted out the door just as she threw the chair at him, shattering it against the wall of her office. Tsunade roared, that was my favorite chair. She growled, and went to the closet, taking out a folding chair and plopped back down. As she fumed over the little encounter, a fond smile. That old toad always did know how to push my buttons. She sighed, sitting back regarding the small packages by her desk. One was a box containing Naruto's Chunin flak vest, as well as 2 full sets of the Sarutobi clan's special adamantine kunai and shuriken, and some chakra paper. Everything that Naruto had earned with the promotion. The other was a small parcel intended for Tayuya. Inside she would find a medium-sized scroll and a smaller scroll containing the body flicker techniques. If she was as right as she was hoping, then the girl was just like her father. Being a genjutsu user, Tayuya naturally had a high amount of yang chakra. Even though her reserves were only on par with Asuma, she was, apparently, just as talented with genjutsu as Kurenai was. Which was surprising, considering that woman could cast her illusions with single finger, almost as quick as any Uchiha. But, if her lineage held true, she would also have a wind nature, and possibly fire or lightning, but the clincher would be the body flicker. The blood testing hadn't lied, that much was certain, but to actually see if she was anything like him was something she dearly hoped, even if she never developed the Sharingan, which she vehemently hoped she wouldn't. If she did, Tsunade knew that she would be hard-pressed to keep the girl safe. A Kekkei Genkei always had a chance to pass on to a new generation, but the ratio was far greater if the father were the one that had the particular gift, which Tayuya's father had. But seeing as she had taken on the physical traits of the Uzumaki clan, the blonde Kage hoped that the Sharingan remained dormant. She reached down and picked the items up, leaning on her desk, and smirked. "I guess I could drop in and see how they're doing," she said, rising from her chair. "I need to pick up Sakura, anyway." Tayuya woke up feeling more relaxed than she had in a long time. For a moment, she couldn't recall where she was until she felt the futon mattress beneath her. It was certainly nothing like the cell she slept in back in Otto. And it was much softer than her hospital bed. And the best possible part, she could smell something good cooking, even though she knew the kitchen was a little ways from her chosen room. She sat up in bed, sighing as she stretched her arms out overhead, her stomach growling. Whatever's cooking sure smells good, she sighed happily. I can't believe I slept so well. There was a knock at her door, and none other than her blonde host slid it open, a small tray in his hands. "Morning, Tayuya-chan." He beamed. "Hope you're hungry." "Hell yeah," the girl smirked. "Serving me breakfast in bed, shithead." "Wow, you really know how to get on a girl's good side, huh?" Naruto blushed a bit at the insinuation, but kept grinning. "Hey, when a girl chases you around as much as you chased me, you gotta give her something back, right?" "Smartass," Tayuya grinned as he set the tray beside her. "Better than being a dumb ass," he shot back. "How's your leg?" Tayuya looked down at her leg, flexing it a little, and smiled at feeling no pain. "Looks like I'm totally good," she said. "Man, I'll give you tree huggers one thing. You sure know how to treat a girl." She grinned and turned to the tray. "Is all that mine?" she asked, noting that it was loaded with scrambled eggs, toast, and a few slices of bacon. Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Yeah. Sorry it's not traditional or anything, but I don't know how to cook all that much. This is about as good as I can do." Tayuya reached out and grabbed a piece of toast and bit into it. "This is more than what I usually got under Orochimaru," she said truthfully. "I only ever got real food when I was away from the base." She picked up a piece of bacon, "and no one's ever been nice enough to bring me breakfast in bed. So thanks, shithead." Naruto grinned. "You know, I get that you're insulting me, but I'm kinda getting used to being called that," Naruto said, smirking at the girl. "Besides, I can tell you call me that with all your love. Ta-yu-ya-chi." He grinned wider as the girl blushed brighter than her hair. "DDDD don't say, Kai, like that. It sounds completely wrong coming from a guy. And don't even think of using an affectionate with me, shithead." Tayuya roared, causing Naruto to laugh. "Ah, man, I feel so loved right now." Naruto laughed loudly whilst holding his sides. "You should see your face." Tayuya had half a mind to throw the plate of eggs in his face. Fortunately for him they smelled too good to waste. And it just so happened that someone decided to bang on the front door loudly enough that the blonde couldn't help but hear it. Naruto grimaced. Who the hell knocks like that this early in the morning? He grumbled, rising to his feet. "Be right back," he said over his shoulder, smirking. "Hopefully this won't take long, because I want to start training again." Tayuya watched him go, and a plan start forming. Getting to her feet, she followed after him silently, making sure the long shirt she wore covered her lower half enough that no one could the shorts she wore underneath. Thankfully, her hair was messed up enough that she looked the part of a girl that had had a rough night. In a good way, of course. Naruto hurried toward the front of the house, sighing as he heard a familiar voice that belonged to a certain loud-mouthed Inuzuka, along with a few others he knew, one of them being Shikamaru telling Kiba to be quiet. He also heard the unmistakable sound of chips crunching, and figured that Choji was with them, and where there was Choji and Shikamaru. "Oh, no." Naruto groaned as he slid open the door. And found it to be much worse than he thought. "Kiba." Akamaru, perched on his head as usual, was there, along with the rest of his team consisting of Hinata, and Shino with their Jonin-sensei, Kurenai Yuhi, who was giving the loud youth a sour look. Team 10 was in attendance, minus their sensei, as Ino was talking loudly while Choji was munching away on barbecue chips. And then there was his own team, Sasuke, in attendance, giving his teammate and friend an apologetic look as Sakura argued with her blonde rival for the boy's affections. Hinata stood off behind Kurenai, peeking out from behind her as Naruto opened the door. Kakashi gave the boy his customary eyes smile and salute. "Yo, Naruto-kun, we thought we'd come by end." "Naruto-kun," Tayuya's voice called out sleepily, setting Naruto's hair standing on end. "She wouldn't," Naruto gulped. "Come back to bed already," Tayuya said as she came into view, and Naruto felt his hopes of a normal morning fly straight out the window. She was barefooted, bare-legged, and her hair was beyond messy. Yes, she would. Naruto slowly, almost mechanically, turned back to his friends, and saw all of them staring at him owlishly, all of the girls blushing with their hands over their cheeks, or in Sakura's case, her jaw hitting the ground, just like most of the guys were doing. Sans Sasuke and Shino. Though Sasuke did look like he'd swallowed a pine cone, and Shino was being Shino. Naruto gulped when he looked up at Kakashi and Kurenai. One looked shocked, pleasantly so, and the other looking madder than a wet tiger. Guess who that was? This isn't how it looks, Naruto hazarded, ready to bolt the moment it looked like he was going to get it. Kakashi gave a small giggle. My cute little student's finally become a man. Kurenai gave the man a dirty look. Kakashi, I hope you're not encouraging this, Kurenai admonished. I know that shinobi are encouraged to marry young, but Naruto is only 12. 13, Naruto corrected. I just had a birthday a few weeks ago. Tayuya just had to make things worse by coming up behind him and throwing her arms around his neck, leaning on him heavily. Well, happy birthday, Naru-kun, she all but purred, making him shiver. That snapped a certain Rosette out of her stupor. Sakura growled, tick marks appearing all over her head as she clenched her fists. Naruto. Naruto yelped, Nyaha, time to go. He slammed the door shut and stumbled back into the house with Tayuya giggling away like mad as he made his escape. That is until the same Rosette blasted the door open with her freakish strength, making the redhead pale. Doors weren't supposed to splinter like that from one punch. Ah, come on, Sakura-chan, I just fixed that, Naruto whined as his teammate chased after them. Kakashi and Kurenai watched and listened to the chaos unfold with varying expressions while the few genin and single chunin laughed, minus Hinata, at the blonde's predicament. Shouldn't we stop them? Kurenai wondered. I know the boy needs to be taught a lesson, but… Kakashi chuckled. I'd like to see you try to get in between Sakura-chan when she's on the warpath like that, he said, a small bead of sweat running down his face. Besides, I doubt that she'll be able to catch Naruto. Though I do fear for his home. As he spoke, there was a resounding crash through the building, and a loud shout from Tayuya. What the hell, Pinky? Shut up. I'll knock the hell outta Oya for corrupting Naru Baka. Why can't either of you crazy girls use my real name, damn it? Naruto roared, and stop wrecking my house, TTEBAYO. =X=. It was sometime later that the situation diffused, and Sakura finally wound herself down. Catching two Uzumaki was not an easy feat, especially when one was known to be a ball of boundless energy. How do you have so much energy? Sakura huffed, sagging against the wall of the house while Naruto jogged in place a few paces away. Tayuya, though less winded, was no better than Sakura, only having just healed from her broken leg. Remind me never to fucking screw with that crazy ass girl again. Tayuya groaned as she rubbed her leg to ease away a cramp. She's got more power in that punch than Jirobo. Naruto sighed in relief when he saw that the Rosette had calmed down. You really think I'm gonna let myself be hit for something I obviously didn't do? Naruto asked, jerking his thumb at the redhead. She just likes to mess with people too much for her own good. And proud of it. Tayuya grinned. Naruto rolled his eyes, looking toward the rest of his guests. So, what did you guys come by for? He asked. Not that I'm not happy to see you. Nobody ever visits me apart from Kakashi-sensei and Pervy Sage. Shikamaru shrugged. I figured I'd come by and see how everything turned out after you got out of the hospital. But I never expected you'll see her again, he said, pointing at Tayuya, let alone shacking up with you. You can thank Kakashi for that, Naruto said, smirking, and it turns out that she's part of my clan, so it all works out in the end for me. Clan? That's right, Kakashi said, answering their question. Naruto is indeed part of a clan, and one of the founding members of the village as well. Hang on a minute, Kiba butted in. How is the dead last of the class part of a clan? I thought he was an orphan? Sasuke grunted. Hey, knock it off, Kiba, don't forget I'm an orphan, too. Yeah, but my dad was the fourth Hokage, Naruto growled out before Kiba could get started again. My mom was Kushina Uzumaki, the last full-blooded Uzumaki known. He jerked his thumb at Tayuya again. She's a half-blood, like me. And she's going to be a part of Team 7 starting from today, Kakashi put in, shocking Naruto and Tayuya as well as Sakura and Sasuke. Since Sakura-chan is going to be training under Tsunade-sama. We were short a teammate, and Tsunade-sama decided it was best that Tayuya be put with us since she requested to be put in the shinobi forces. That makes sense, Sasuke said. It'll also give you a good chance to keep an eye on her. Ino was looking more stunned than any of them had ever seen her, but that didn't last before she gave the blonde a flirty look. Well, at least we don't have to worry about Naruto getting a girlfriend, seeing as Tayuya Kai already. Ah, hell nah. Tayuya spat, leaping to her feet. Shithead I can put up with, but there is no way I'm letting some blonde bimbo call me by pet names. No sooner had she said that than she launched herself at the girl. Ino smirked and brought her hands together, mind trans. Stop. Naruto roared, and the room went completely black, the blonde disappearing and the temperature dropping. Tayuya hit the floor beneath her, but felt as though she were lying on ice, cold as it was. She could even see her breath. What the hell? Ino yelped, her teeth beginning to chatter as the cold set in. Hinata shivered and hid herself behind Kurenai further, while the woman crossed her arms, a smirk on her lips. It's a genjutsu. I never knew one could be this powerful. Naruto-kun, can you drop it, please? She called out, her voice echoing. A moment later, the darkness receded, revealing a tired-looking Naruto, sweat beading his brow. Damn it, that took a lot out of me. He groaned, man, I've got to learn how to control these things. Hinata peeked out from behind her sensei and gasped when she saw the blood-red eyes Naruto now possessed. Why your eyes? Yeah, it's a new dojutsu that I got from my dad's side of the family. Naruto explained, bowing his head apologetically, sorry about that. Kurenai smiled as she saw his eyes, a Karyugen user, huh? I've never seen one before now. You know about this dojutsu? Kakashi asked, surprised. Kurenai shrugged, I came across one of the Chinook clan a few years back. She said, making Naruto raise his head. She was an old woman that possessed the matured dojutsu, and even the blood manipulation that came along with it. Even in her age, she was a powerful kunoichi, and taught me a little bit about genjutsu that I didn't already know. She looked at Naruto. I'm not sure if any of them are still alive to this day, but you should know that just like the Uzumaki clan, the Chinook clan were scattered by war. Naruto nodded. Yeah, kinda figured that. He said, and rose to his feet, helping Tayuya up as he did. I'll make some tea, then we can catch up on things. Like how come Choji so skinny? Hey, Choji smiled, I'm trying to gain it all back. When Tsunade and Jiraiya arrived, it was to find the Uzumaki compound rowdier than usual, the voice of the Godime's apprentice carrying over the din. Well, I guess this explains why the Anbu couldn't find her. Jiraiya said, sighing, this place has seals all around the perimeter. Tsunade sighed, now I can't chew them out for not completing their task, she grumbled, adjusting the packages she held. Well, shall we? Let's, Jiraiya smiled, I can't wait to see the look on Naruto's face. When the Godem knocked on the door, she was met by a loud laugh as Tayuya herself opened the door. A small spike of apprehension shot through her upon seeing her former master's teammates. Should I get Naruto? I came here to see you. Tsunade smiled at the girl, easing her worries somewhat. I have something for you that I think you can make use of if you haven't already, and a summoning contract to replace those horrid ogres. She said, presenting one of the package she held under her arm. Tayuya took it with a respectful bow, and a small smile on her face. Thank you, Don't thank me, yet, dear, Tsunade smiled. I'd like to see how well you can master those techniques. She said, tapping the box with her finger. Inside you'll find a scroll containing the body flicker technique as well as its follow-up move, as well as the crow contract. They're much more reliable than ogres. Thank you, she said, beaming as she opened up the gift. I've never used those before, and the crows are used by one of the Akatsuki, Itachi, I think? Tsunade nodded. That's right, but I think you'll find that these will serve you better than him, she said. A very famous shinobi made himself a name by using these. Shushin no Shisui, a good man in my opinion, and every bit as fast with the body flicker as the fourth was with his flying thunder god. Jiraiya smiled and inched his way around the pair in search of Naruto. While he was doing that, Tsunade led the girl out into the yard to sign the contract. It was much smaller than a major summoning contract, where the creatures grew to tremendous size, but Tayuya didn't care. As she opened the scroll, she found 2 names before hers. One faded, signifying that the summoner had passed on, while the other remained as it was when it was first signed. She bit down on her thumb and wrote her name right next to Itachi Uchiha's, almost forgetting to add Uzumaki to her name, smiling to herself when she did. It felt nice to know who she was. All right, she said, making the necessary hand signs before slamming her bloodied hand to the ground, summoning jutsu. A small puff of smoke was all that alerted her to her new summon's arrival. Sitting where her hand had come down was a large black crow cleaning his feathers. Tayuya held out her hand to the bird, and it hopped on, nibbling at her fingers when she reached to pet it. I think that means it likes you, Tsunade chuckled as the bird hopped onto her shoulder. Of course I do, the bird croaked, shocking the girl. What? You didn't think I could talk? Sorry, Tayuya said, I've never had an intelligent summon before. Tsunade nodded. Truth be told, my friend, I didn't know that the crows could talk, either. The bird shrugged his wings. We don't normally talk around anyone but our summoners, but I can sense you have the slug contract, and we're friends with them. And the girl is now one of our summoners, so why wouldn't I talk? That sorta makes sense. Tayuya giggled like a little girl in a candy shop. I'm Tayuya, Uzumaki Tayuya. The bird cocked his head, and Uzumaki, huh? Never had one of them for a summoner. Usually we're given to the Uchiha more often than not. Us or those stupid ninja cats. He fluffed his feathers. I'm glad I got someone different. She's different all right, Tsunade thought as the girl began to bond with the bird. Now we just have to test out my theory of her being excellent at the body flicker. Tayuya, Tsunade smiled, gaining the pair's attention. I'm going to give Team 7 a week to prepare for that rescue mission for the other Uzumaki girl you mentioned. So in that time, I'd like you to work on those techniques I gave you, and bond with your new summons. She reached into her robes, and pulled out a slip of paper. Here, I trust you know what this is? Tayuya nodded, and took hold of it. Tsunade waited with bated breath as the girl channeled her chakra into it. The paper split in half. Wind. The paper then began to burn around the edges before being engulfed, and turning to ash. Fire. So my primary element is wind? Tayuya smiled, and fire for a second. Tsunade nodded. The fire element is weaker than the wind element, but you can work on both of them to make them stronger. She said, beaming. As it happens, one of our best Jonin is also a wind and fire user, so you can take lessons from him. The crow on her shoulder cocked his head. She's got a lightning chakra as well. The bird said, I can sense it, but it's really weak as it is. She'll really need to work her tail feathers off to actually use it. Tayuya looked at her new summon. As long as I don't have to go through what I did with Orochimaru, then I've got no problem, she said, scratching the bird under the chin. Tsunade smiled and guided the girl back toward the house, the crow still perched on her shoulder. As they passed into the house, she thought she saw someone for a moment. A dark-haired man smiling at the girl from the treeline. And when she looked back, he was gone. Tsunade had never been the superstitious type, but she couldn't help but feel a small smile coming to her face. She's just like you, she whispered so that the girl couldn't hear her. It's just a shame you never got to meet her, Shisui. Jiraiya watched as Naruto's hand moved the brush slowly over the paper, his smile growing. That's good, Jiraiya said quietly, hoping not to disturb him. You have the form down, now we just have to practice the jutsu itself. Naruto placed his brush down and sighed. Do you really think I'm ready for that? He asked. It's only been 3 days since I started. Jiraiya chuckled. What's this? And here I thought that you'd be all gung-ho about this. Naruto bit his lip. Yeah, but you said this seal was really dangerous if I got it wrong, and it's not only gonna be me that's gonna get hurt, right? Jiraiya shook his head. You know, it never ceases to amaze me how much like your father you actually are, the old man said, taking a seat next to his apprentice. Minato was quite against hurting others as well. Even when someone defected from the village, he was reluctant to harm a fellow leaf shinobi, totally unlike your mother, who would have clobbered him, most likely. Naruto chuckled, scratching the back of his head. Well, I'd clobber anyone that hurt someone precious to me, so. You're like both of them, he said, patting the boy on the head, and now you're a Chunin, they'd be proud of you. But back to this seal, Naruto. It's going to rely on all that chakra you have tucked away inside of you. All you have to do is keep it activated. Believe it or not, the seal itself is pretty simple from an Uzumaki's point of view. Naruto nodded whilst studying his seal. Well, yeah, I get that. But I'm only a half-blood, and I hardly know anything about seals, at least not until we started this one. You don't need to worry about that, kid, Jiraiya assured him. The seal itself is fairly simple. As you charge the seal with chakra, all you do is keep your hands in place to feed it the chakra needed to work, and the best things about it is that you don't need to worry about overcharging it. The more chakra you put into it, the stronger the seal becomes. Really the only downside to this one is that it still takes time. And it'll cause the person you're using it on quite a lot of pain. Naruto grimaced as he looked down at the seal he would later inscribe onto his skin. I don't like that idea at all. From pain you'll be able to free 3 people from a horrible curse, the aging sage said, smiling. The trouble will be keeping them still during the process. If we can't do that, the seal won't be able to take effect. Anko's is probably gonna be easy, but Tayuya and Sasuke's are gonna be hell on them. Naruto's thoughts turned to the fiery girl that had entered his life not so long ago. Along with Sakura, Tenten, and Ino, she now trained with Tsunade, and was well on her way to mastering her techniques given by the Godem. Sakura's strength was already mind-blowing, considering she had excessive strength even before she had taken to Tsunade's teachings. While Ino would never have such strength, both girls were taking to the medical training with a clear competition between them. Tayuya and Tenten were doing their best to keep up with them, but as far as medical training went, it was clear that Sakura was leagues ahead of the pack. Tenten's strength levels were rising day by day, as were Tayuya's. Thankfully, Tayuya had struck up a friendship between the other kunoichi, even after her failed attempt at pranking Naruto, leading said blonde to replacing his front door. Kurenai had taken a shine to the girl as well, seeing as how both of them were genjutsu wielders. As for Naruto's Karyugen, Kakashi and Kurenai had taken a hand in his training to control his dojutsu, and his illusions. Naruto now had a small amount of control over his new eyes. At the very least he wouldn't be casting genjutsu on anyone without knowing what was happening. As far as controlling blood, however, Naruto shivered. There was no way he wanted a power like that. More was the pity that no one knew how to activate the bloodline limit. As far as the blonde Uzumaki was concerned, he'd rather not learn how to use it, but sooner or later he'd have no choice, given that his Karyugen and blood release worked hand in hand. With the activation of his eyes, his power over blood would soon follow. Sasuke was another matter. With him being released, he was still unable to train as he wished. Most of the 3 days saw the last Uchiha roaming the village, a small group of civilians from the Merchants' Council following closely. And if they weren't following him, Anbu definitely were, that or the merchants' daughters. Needless to say, the sooner Sasuke's mark was removed, the better for his daily sanity, or lack thereof, all things considered. Meanwhile, even though the young Uchiha had his family's advanced dojutsu, Naruto was the only one he told about it. Naruto found it funny that it was because he had technically died for a few minutes that had sent Sasuke over the edge, mainly because the same thing could be said about his own dojutsu. Finished wool gathering? Jiraiya said, rapping the boy on the head, smirking. Come on, Naruto, let's take a break. Naruto nodded, smiling as he rose from the table he was sitting at and followed the man out. As they left the house, Tayuya, alongside Sakura, was making her way onto the compound. Both girls were looking more than a little upset. What's got you two so mad? Naruto asked, grinning widely. Tayuya spat, and crossed her arms. Someone graffitied the compound walls. She snapped. The fucktard spray painted a bunch of bullshit all across the walls, and even painted that stupid fleabag you've got locked away on the wall. They did what? Jiraiya roared, surging forward, and passing through the gate, Naruto chasing after him. As Jiraiya skidded onto the streets, it was to see someone dropping a can of paint to the ground, and running down the street. Jiraiya growled and shot after him like a thrown shuriken and grabbed the man by the collar, dragging him back just as quickly. Naruto waited, looking at the walls of his clan's compound. It was nothing he wasn't used to. Only, the words, demon whore, had been added. That's what made the blonde angry. Jiraiya slammed the man against the wall, growling, "Just what the hell do you think you're doing, you idiot?" The man roared, "This is a compound dedicated to the Uzumaki clan, and you've just defaced it. What does it matter?" The man growled, "It's just the home of a demon, now. The Uzumaki are dead." He spat, looking down at the blonde, "You're nothing more than that monster trapped in human form. You're the reason my wife and child are dead." "He's the son of the fourth," Jiraiya roared, "you disgrace his sacrifice." The man just sneered at him, he disgraced this village for allowing that monster to survive. He yelled, he should have been strangled the day he was born. That did it. Jiraiya reared his arm back to smash the man's head into oblivion. Until the small palm of Naruto's hand landed on his wrist. Jiraiya looked down at the blonde boy, and saw the anger in his eyes that flashed between blue and red, but he also something else, pity. Jiraiya dropped the man to the ground and Naruto stepped in front of him. "I don't know what it's like to lose someone I love," the blonde began, shaking his head, "I've been lucky that way so far. But I do know what it's like to be completely and utterly alone." The man flinched, "Even the Nine Tails wants that for me, to make me hate." Naruto said, smiling sadly, "Did you know he likes to taunt me?" "Show me things that make me want to hate the world," Naruto asked, looking the man in the eyes. "He showed me images of my parents the night they died, and how he killed my mother as she tried to defend me from him. He did it with a smile on his face." Jiraiya looked at the boy in shock as well as Sakura and the man sitting on the ground. "Yet here I am, still keeping him locked away inside, and keeping the village I grew up in safe. Why defend a village that does nothing but hate you for what you are?" The man asked in sinful curiosity, "How could you possibly fight for us?" Naruto smiled beamingly at that, "Because I found people that know about him, and don't hate me. I have friends that accept the fact that he's a part of me," Naruto said, smiling warmly at Jiraiya, Sakura and Tayuya, who blushed lightly upon seeing that smile turned on her. He then turned his attention back to the man. "This village has my loyalties. But it will never have my hate." With that, the young Uzumaki turned toward the stone walls of his compound. "Ah, looks like it needed a new paint job anyway," he said, looking over at Tayuya and Sakura. "I'm gonna go down and get some paint to cover this. Orange and red look like the best choice since it was kind of the Uzumaki's color." Jiraiya watched the boy walk down the street as merry as a lark before Tayuya ran after him. "Oi, wait up. You're lousy at picking out the best colors." "Get real, it's my wall," Naruto said. "I live there, too, ya jackass." "Only because Granny says so." Naruto grinned. As the pair moved off, Jiraiya couldn't help but smirk. "You know, you're lucky," he said to the man. "If it were left up to me, you'd be dead for hurting my godson so much." He turned and glared at the man. "That being said, spread the word that if anyone decides to try this or any other stunts like this again, I won't be as nice as I was today. Understand?" X some time later found the two resident Uzumaki, brushes in hand and painting the walls of the compound crimson, the traditional color of Uzumaki armor. In some spots, Naruto planned to paint the clan symbol when the previous coat dried. "You know you don't have to help me if you don't want to," he said to his housemate as the girl swiped her brush across the stone walls. "I could put this up in a few minutes with my shadow clones." Tayuya shrugged. "Hey, I already said that if things needed to be done around here, then I'd help out, no questions," she said, not looking at the blonde for a moment, before something in her gave, "Naruto. How do you do it?" "Do what?" Naruto asked curiously, looking over at her once more, and saw that her hand which held the paintbrush was shaking violently. "Tayuya-chan." She turned toward him, her face flushed with anger, and tears brimming in her eyes. "I mean, how can you put up with shit like that?" She pointed at the wall that was still vandalized. "How could you just give that guy a slap on the wrist for saying all of that? He insulted you, your dad, and pretty much said you never should've been born," she yelled. "Even when I was being trained by Orochimaru, I never saw anything so horrible. The way the people look at you. How can you just smile like that all the time?" A brush clattered to the ground and Tayuya found herself wrapped in the blonde's arms as her frame shook with barely contained rage. She stiffened from the contact at once. No one, at least none that she remembered, had ever held her before the blonde shinobi. Being held by him calmed her for some reason, as it had not so long ago when he'd saved her from falling. but now it was completely different.
It's not easy, Naruto said against her hair, which made the girl shiver, all of their hate, the staring, the whispers. For so long I never knew why they looked at me like that, he said, drawing back and wiping something away from her cheek. She hadn't realized it until then that she was crying.
What the hell's wrong with me, Tayuya thought, I haven't cried since. She was brought out of her thoughts when Naruto started speaking again. Even when I found out, I still didn't really understand it. He went on, shaking his head, if I had the fox inside me, then why did everyone want me to fail, and not become a shinobi? Shouldn't I become stronger to keep myself under control? He shook his head, it wasn't until a little later that I figured it out. Just like Sasuke, I was a reminder of something horrible. Sasuke reminds people that one man destroyed an entire clan in a single evening, and nothing could stop him. I remind everyone that more than half the village was destroyed, hundreds were killed, and that my father, the fourth Hokage, died in battle when he just single-handedly destroyed Iwa's attacking army during the last war. He drew back, letting Tayuya settle herself down from the contact between the two of them. I wanted so much to hate them, he went on again, but I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of being right about me. So I pushed it all away, and went out of my way to make friends with my classmates. I wanted to make people see me for me, not the Nine Tails, but Naruto Uzumaki. I'm glad you're here, though, he said before she could respond. Until you came along, I lived alone, and had no one to really call close to me, not even my sensei until Pervy Sage, and old man Tucci and big sis Ayame. They're all I had. And me? Tayuya found herself asking. Naruto grinned at her, you're way different than they are, he told her, scratching the back of his head, you're. Well, not like any girl I've ever met before. Not like Sakura, that's for sure, and you're way different than Hinata. I don't know her. Tayuya deadpanned whilst crossing her arms, and comparing me to other girls ain't the best way to make me feel special, ya know? But I like that you're different, Naruto said hurriedly, hoping he hadn't upset her. I mean, Sakura was always going on about Sasuke, and Hinata's so shy that she barely talks, but you're, well, nice. Really nice. Tayuya uncrossed her arms, and placed her hands on her hips. Nice how? I'm not exactly a model citizen, shithead. Remember I was trained by a manic pedophile with a fetish for weird-ass eyeballs. I mean you helped me when you don't have to, Naruto clarified, and you comforted me when I was arguing with the Nine Tails. I'll always remember that, he said truthfully, blushing slightly at the memory as she did. I can laugh with you like no one else, and talk with you so easily. He said, listing off what he liked about her, and you're really pretty. PP pretty. Tayuya shrieked, turning as red as her hair, are you nuts? She swiped at him with her paintbrush before she realized what she was doing, and left a large red streak down Naruto's face, a dumbfounded expression across his features. Tayuya looked from the blonde to the brush before hiding the offending item behind her back. Sorry? Naruto said, before a deviously little smile crossed his face, and dipped his hand into the paint bucket. Tayuya knew exactly what was coming, and backed away from the blonde. Don't even fucking think about it. She snarled, but, quick as you please, Naruto lunged and planted his hand smack dab on her face, leaving a handprint in his wake. Tayuya blinked owlishly before a snarl came to her face. You are fucking dead. Naruto laughed and danced out of range as she swiped at him with her brush again, his tongue out at her. Gotta eat quicker than that, Tayuya Kai. Don't fucking call me Tayuya Kai. The redhead roared and chased after him, only to watch as he tripped over one of the buckets. The paint concealed over their heads, spilling its contents all over the pair. Naruto sat on the ground, completely drenched in paint, just as Tayuya was, the girl's nose wrinkling in disgust. Damn it, I'm never gonna get this shit out of my fucking hair. Grinning, Naruto couldn't help the snicker that rose up before he burst into full-blown laughter while Tayuya scowled at him. It's not funny, asshole. She snapped, her hands on her hips. How are we gonna finish the wall? Naruto just continued laughing. Tayuya shook her head, a smile of her own coming to her lips as her own laughter started bubbling up as she burst into giggles. Tsunade sat back in her chair, smiling at the bit of news she just heard. So you think there might be something between them? She asked of her old comrade. I'll admit that it'd do the boy a world of good to be interested in someone besides Sakura-chan. But it hasn't been that long since she was brought to the village? Jiraiya just shrugged. His arms crossed as he recalled the events he'd looked upon from the rooftops as the pair painted over the compound walls. Stranger things have happened, he reminded her. Remember how Kakashi and Shizune-chan started up? Tsunade blushed. I honestly try to forget that.
Jiraiya snickered over that bit of information, because, in all honesty, he had been surprised that Kakashi even liked women. Rin was one thing, but the man hadn't shown any interest in women since his former teammate. Of course, a few rounds of strong sake, Jiraiya's own personal stock of fire-toad sake, no less, and the two had literally opened up like floodgates. Jiraiya had gotten just enough research out of it to publish his next book.
Tsunade, needless to say, was horrified when she found the two, but was nonetheless happy for them. Only wishing she hadn't caught them in the act. Laying all jokes aside, Jiraiya said, I think that there might be something there. Naruto-kun surely seems to be growing attached to her, and I can't say Tayuya-chan liked the fact that this village still views Naruto as the Kyuubi. He looked the woman in the eyes, she cried for him, Tsunade. How many people have you seen do that aside from yourself? Tsunade sat back, frowning, I just don't want to get my hopes up. She admitted, Tayuya-chan doesn't seem to be much for signs of affections, let alone shows of emotions. Jiraiya nodded, that's true, but even the hardest stone can crack with enough pressure. The hatred the civilians have towards Naruto-kun is almost enough for me to demand him be taken to Mount Myoboku so that I can make him into a force to be reckoned with. No one would dare harm him after I was through with him. Yet he wants to stay in the village and train alongside his team. Tsunade said, smiling, they're his family, Jiraiya. You can't take that away from him, as much as you want him to be strong. Jiraiya just chuckled. He'd pitch a fit if I tried to take him away from Tayuya-chan. That's for sure, he said, smiling fondly. I know you think it's too soon for something like this to happen, but it has. If they aren't crushing on each other, then I'm the sage of six paths. Tsunade actually giggled at this, and smiled at the man. I'm not making any bets with you on this one, you old goat. We'll just have to wait and see where all of this goes. She said, hoping that, for once, her old comrade was right. How long until Naruto is ready to perform the sealing jutsu? Any day, honestly, Jiraiya said with a shrug. I was planning to test it out on something simple tomorrow so he could get a feel for the jutsu, but I get the feeling that he'll want to do something physical soon. So it's gonna be some nose to the ground sparring and team building exercises tomorrow with Tayuya and Sasuke back on the team, and hopefully Sakura will be there as well. I'd like to see how well they all work together. She didn't seem to have a problem with the other two, or them her, but we need to see how they fit together as a team. I agree with you there, she said, nodding. She gets along well with Sakura and Ino when they train in the healing arts, and she's quite well off as far as our combat training goes. She's all but mastered the body flicker technique. And the crows have accepted her completely. As far as all that goes, she's right up there with Sakura. Even though she doesn't have the natural physical strength Sakura seems to possess, she is fast, and has incredible chakra control. So was her father, Jiraiya said, gaining a surprised look from Tsunade. Oh, come on, I'm the spymaster of Konoha. How could I not find this out? X equals, damn it, this stuff just won't come out. Naruto growled as he scrubbed at his scalp furiously. Tayuya was right, this sucks. The door to the bath slid opened and said Ginger walked in, still scrubbing? She asked as Naruto yelped and ducked under the water. What the fuck's up with you? Naruto came back up and scowled at the girl, blushing brightly as he saw her, clad in only a towel. What the hell are you even doing in here? Naruto snapped. I told you I was gonna get cleaned up. Yeah, and I wanted to get this shit out of my hair, Tayuya said nonchalantly, striding into the room and stepping into the water, sinking up to her shoulders with a tired sigh. What? You gonna tell me you've never seen a naked girl? Of course I have. Naruto snapped. I just didn't expect you to just waltz in here while I was in here. Tayuya just crossed her arms behind her head. It's not something to get upset about. Orochimaru didn't exactly care about our bathing habits. We all pretty much bathed whenever we had the time, and didn't care who was already in the bath or not. She said, shrugging, I've seen loads of naked guys and girls, and it's nothing that I find offending if that's what you're worried about. Or are you just shy about being seen naked? She grinned mischievously at him. Naruto growled, and sank low into the water, not rising to the bait. Hey, can I ask you something? He said, looking over at her for a moment. Sure, what? Tayuya asked. Well, Sasuke's curse mark made him look Different, he said, looking at her a little easier now. Did yours do something like that? Tayuya grew a somber look across her face. You mean did it make me look like a monster? Naruto gulped. I guess so. Clasping the towel around her tighter, she rose from the water, making Naruto look away as it clung to her developing body. Wanna see? Naruto was more concerned over his own body than his curiosity at the moment, even as he raised his eyes up to her. Her brown eyes were on him just as his were on her, a hint of fear hidden within them. Slowly, his head bobbed up and down in answer. Tayuya gave a small smile as she began to draw on the seal's power, the black and red marking spreading across her skin. Naruto watched in fascination as the pattern blackened her skin for a moment as it covered her body, and gave way to a dark, caramel-colored skin beneath. The whites of her eyes had become black as pitch, the irises having become the color of molten gold surrounding her pupils. Her hair had become a pale pink in color, and 2 long horns had sprouted from her scalp. A small blush darkened her cheeks as she felt his eyes on her. He rose from the water, coming closer to her. I know, she said quietly, I look horrible don't I? No, was the answer she received, you look, be beautiful. The girl's head snapped around, finding the blonde standing right next to her, his eyes wide with wonder as he took in her transformed state. Beautiful. No one's ever called me that. She thought, the blush deepening. If it were someone she knew from Orochimaru's ranks telling her such a thing, she knew it would have been a ploy to get her into bed with them. A trick she had seen too many times with the other kunoichi in their ranks. But it was different with the blonde. When he said it, she actually believed it. She looked down at his chest, away from those eyes of his that always seemed to fascinate her, and her gaze fell upon the large scar on his chest. She reached out a hand and placed it against the ruined flesh, making him shiver as he covered her hand with his own, the color draining from her skin as she began to return to normal. His touch felt far warmer than the water, sending a pleasant heat up through her arm. So focused on each other as they were, they hadn't noticed how close they had moved until they stood but a few inches away, a fact that startled the girl. I think I've been in here a little too long, she said, fanning herself with her fingers. I'll see you later, Naruto. She hurried out of the water and made a dash for the door. All the while the blonde watched her go, a confused look across his face as he placed his hand over the spot where her fingers had been. Meanwhile, Tayuya had snatched up her clothes, and made a mad dash to her bedroom, leaning against the door as she tried to catch her breath. What the hell was that? She asked herself as she slid to the floor, her heart pounding. She placed her hand over her chest, trying to calm herself. What's gotten into me? I've never. The redness in her cheeks returned full force as she recalled what had happened only moments ago. No one's ever looked at me like that. Girl talk and guy talk. Naruto sat Caesar in the center of a sealing circle, chanting a short mantra that was meant to go along with the casting of the seal he was working on. But his focus was elsewhere. Namely on a certain red-haired young woman that had recently entered his life. Growing up, Naruto's mind had once been occupied with thoughts of his Rosette teammate, Sakura. In the past week, however, as Tayuya had taken to living with him in the old Uzumaki compound, his thoughts had been wandering further and further from his first crush. It wouldn't have done any good, he knew, because even before going after Sasuke, Sakura had been getting farther and farther out of his thoughts. It was clear, even to him who wasn't the smartest of his friends, that Sakura was irrevocably attracted to his other teammate, Sasuke. And, though he would never admit it, Sasuke was growing closer and closer to the Rosette medic in training. He had seen them more than once together around the village, and Sasuke actually looked pleased with her company. A tap on his shoulder brought him out of his failed chant, making him look up to see Jiraiya standing there. A Ryo for your thoughts? Naruto sighed and stood up. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to be getting ready for the sealing method, but your mind wanders to matters of the heart, Jiraiya said, sounding wise for once, smiling as he sat down, giving the boy a level-eyed look. Just what's eating you, Naruto? He asked, smirking. Is it Sakura, or is it Tayuya Kai? Naruto grimaced. She doesn't like being called that. Tayuya, then, he said, snapping his fingers with a grin. Thought as much. Naruto frowned. It's not like that, pervy sage. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. That's what your father said as a fresh genin when he and Kushina pulled around. He said as Naruto flushed red. Come on, Naruto. This isn't me trying to do some of my research. This is me trying to help my student. Naruto shook his head, sitting back down with a flop. I don't know, but she's different. Different how? Jiraiya asked, looking at the boy in interest, his arms crossed. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto sighed. That's the thing. I don't know. He confessed, there's tons of pretty girls here in the village, but with her, no one else can compare. Jiraiya smiled in understanding. To you, no one else can look so beautiful, yet so terrifying, and fragile, all at once. He said as the boy looked at him, a little shocked. So beautiful. You want to approach, yet you fear what she would turn you away if you did. And so fragile you fear harming her yourself. Naruto nodded slowly. Why yeah. That kind of feels like how she makes me feel. Jiraiya chuckled and patted the boy on the shoulder. And so the boy becomes a man, he said. How long have you felt like this? Naruto looked embarrassed. We were in the bath 2 nights ago, he said, Jiraiya remaining quiet as he spoke. I asked her about her curse mark, and she showed me what she looked like. Jiraiya frowned at that. Oh, what did you do? Say she looked weird? Naruto shook his head. No, I thought she looked, well, beautiful, he blushed, shaking his head again. I mean, I've never seen anything like what she looked like right then, he said truthfully. Her skin was so dark, like melted caramel, or something. And her eyes. He shivered as he remembered how those black and gold orbs had looked when turned on him. I've never seen eyes like hers before. Even when she's not transformed, they're way different than anyone else's. The eyes of a seasoned kunoichi, Jiraiya stated with a nod of his head, smiling, knowing Orochimaru. He got her young, way younger than a shinobi should be trained, and made her what she is as a fighter. He said, you've never seen it, Naruto, but to a trained eye, even a kunoichi in disguise can be spotted by eyes like that. Cold, yet at the same time, warm and inviting. Naruto shook his head. That's not it. He said, thinking back on the look she'd given him in the bath just before touching his scar. The only scar he had on his body, actually. When she looked at me, it's almost like she didn't believe me. Like no one had ever said she was pretty or anything like that. Ah, Jiraiya nodded. Probably because she hadn't until then. He said, smirking. What did she do then? Naruto rubbed the center of his chest. She touched the scar Sasuke's Chidori left. He said, and I held her hand for a minute. Then she left in a really big hurry. At this, the old man chuckled. Naruto, you really are a knucklehead, you know that? Naruto frowned, but the old man just sighed, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. Tayuya's never had anyone tell her that she's pretty, or anything like that. And you're probably the only boy she's ever been close to like this. Think about it. She's acting the way she is because, even though she doesn't know it, the girl has a thing for you. Naruto blushed. Really? Aha, and I'd say you feel the same, he said, grinning as the boy's face went a deeper shade of red. Naruto, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nice to see you taking an interest in someone other than Sakura. The blonde sighed, I guess, but she's way different than Sakura-chan. Naruto admitted, she's violent, yeah, but she's sweet, and kinda shy. Damn, Jiraiya muttered, shaking his head with a slight smile, I was wrong. You're not crushing, you're smitten, kiddo. Naruto looked worried, so. What do I do? Jiraiya shrugged, if Tayuya's reactions are anything to go on, keep doing what you've done up until now. He said, just be with her. She's still new to all of this, so she won't know what to feel until it pretty much smacks her in the face. Naruto smiled. Okay, so just keep being me, he sighed, I can do that. Meanwhile. Tayuya sat back against the tree with a sigh of relief. The morning's training session was brutal as always, and she was feeling it more than usual. She hadn't been sleeping as well as she usually did under Naruto's roof. She didn't want to admit it, but the reason for her lack of sleep was her host. You look beautiful. She sighed and tucked her legs up to her chest. Just what about me is beautiful when I look like that? She wondered as she watched Sakura sparring with Tsunade whilst she, Ino, Tenten and Hinata rested. She reached up to touch the mark on her neck. Still. He's the only one that never looked at me, and wasn't afraid of me when I changed. I don't get it, Ino panted, sweating profusely. Where's forehead getting all of that energy? She asked as she watched Sakura get knocked back again, only for the rosette to get right back up and start again at the godem. Tenten giggled as she fanned out her blouse. Gotta give her credit, she said, watching the pair as Sakura nearly connected a punch. She's getting better. As far as fighting strength goes, she's got all of us beat. Hinata can beat her in straight-up taijutsu, though, Tayuya put in for the brunette's benefit. Sakura's got way more strength than any of us, but Hinata has us all beat as far as training goes. Said Hyuga only gave a tired smile. Thank you, to Yuya-san. But you've all got much more stamina than I do. Kya. All four girls looked up as Sakura came careening out of nowhere and crashed into the ground. Tayuya coughed as the impact kicked up a dust cloud around them. Sakura was laying on the ground, her eyes whirling around in swirls. I think I've had enough for today, she mumbled as Tayuya looked over her. That's probably a good thing, she said, cause guess what? What? Sakura asked. Tayuya just grinned. You got knocked the fuck out. Ino and Tenten cracked up laughing as Sakura slumped while Hinata, holding in a giggle or two of her own, comforted her. Tsunade chuckled as she walked over to the battered group of girls. Well, you've all done well for today, girls, I'm impressed. Sakura righted herself and sat up. Yeah, but we've all got a long way to go before we're up to your level. The Rosette sighed. We're still getting thrashed. Well, of course you are, Tsunade said, smiling. I've had years of experience as far as combat goes, so my strength is way out of your league. Tayuya smirked. Yeah. Then what's Pinky's deal? She asked, jerking her thumb at the girl in question. She's got all of us beat in brute strength, and her chakra control's almost as good as mine. Sakura, as a civilian, has a very strong bone structure, and since she was from a civilian family, her chakra levels have always been low, Tsunade said, looking down at the rosette. Most of the time, a civilian-turned-shinobi has very good chakra control because they start out with small reserves, and build them up over time, thus leading to manageable levels as time goes on. Her muscles mass has something more to do with her strength as well. She has a rare type of muscle build that naturally channels chakra throughout her body, making her punches and kicks stronger than average. Couple that with shinobi training and she has at least low Jonin strength. Tayuya looked at the pink-haired Kunoichi as she finally recovered enough to sit up. Huh, no wonder she hits like a ton of bricks, she commented, thinking back to the time she'd knocked her front door down. Tsunade chuckled. And she has a temper, she said approvingly. Now, you girls run along, and rest up for tomorrow's training session. Sakura stood up and dusted herself off. Thanks for the lesson, Tsunade-sama, she chirped happily. Ino looked at her in confusion. You're energetic all of a sudden, she said, frowning. What's got into you? Sakura placed her hands behind her back, grinning at her rival. I've got a date with Sasuke-kun, she said in a teasing sing-song voice to annoy the platinum blonde, which it did, extensively. Wah! Are you kidding me? Ino roared. Tayuya frowned as the pair began to argue over the Uchiha, ignoring them for the most part, becoming distracted once again. Tenten rose and dusted herself off, heading toward the village. Tayuya got up and followed after her. Hey, Tenten, you mind helping me out? Tenten turned to the girl curiously. Sure, what's going on? Tayuya frowned, trying to think of a way to voice her problems. Well, it's about Naruto. Tenten gave the girl a look, then smirked. Ho? What's the matter? Did he do something you didn't like? Or something you did like? Tayuya scowled at her. It's not that, ya bun head, she groused, crossing her arms in front of her chest in annoyance. I just don't know that much about him and, well, I want to know more, okay? Tenten thought for a moment, taking in the girl's body language for a second, and grinned. He's a total loser. The hell? Tayuya roared. No he's not. Gotcha, Tenten yelled, grinning. You do like him. Do not. Tayuya snapped, forming an X with her arms. Can you please be fucking serious here? Tenten giggled. Okay. Sorry, she smiled. Man, you sure are defensive of the guy. We're family, right? Tayuya shrugged. Isn't a family supposed to stick up for one another? Now stop changing the fucking subject. The brunette grinned a little. Well, he is a loser, that's for sure, she said, holding up her hand when the irate ginger was about to have another go at her. But that's only because he really hates losing, she said, which made the girl stop short and give a little smile. Honestly, Naruto and I were bunkmates back at the orphanage. Back then, he wasn't really well liked at all. None of the adults would let the other kids play with him, even though he seemed a little timid back then. I was only made to bunk with him because there was so little room, but he was a real sweetie back then, too. How's that? The girl gave a small smile. Back then, after the attack on the village, it took a long time for things to recover. She said, thinking back on her childhood, Even after a few years our forces in Shinobi were still halved. So the village was always on high alert because even our genin teams were all out on missions to make money for the village. Food and clothing were hard to get for orphans like us, but whenever there wasn't enough to go around, Naruto, even though he was so small, and barely got anything to eat himself, always shared with me. She said, frowning as it all started coming back to her in waves. Her eyes actually began to water. I always looked at him like my little brother back then. But I was adopted, and never saw him again after that until I started hearing rumors about a blonde academy student causing a commotion. I knew it had to be him. He loved his jokes, and never hesitated to pull one when he saw a chance. In all honesty, I wanted to find him and find out how he had been since we parted all those years ago, Tenten continued, sighing. But I was kept so busy with my life in becoming a kunoichi, and working in my dad's forge that I never got the chance, and when we finally saw each other again, he didn't even know who I was. She shrugged. That's the way it goes, I guess. It hurt, but after I saw that he'd survived so long on his own, I was happy knowing that, and by just how strong he was. He put me to shame in the Chunin exams. Hell, he put all of us to shame. I don't think I've ever seen anyone land a hit on Neji like he did, or run him through his paces unless it was Lee he was fighting. Tayuya nodded as they entered the village together. Didn't he have anyone he was close to when he was a kid? She asked, frowning. I mean, I was practically raised by Orochimaru, and even I had a friend. Tenten shrugged. I know he's always been close to the Ichiraku family that runs the ramen stand he eats at all the time, she said, which was obvious, given it was Naruto's favorite food. And then there's Iruka-sensei that taught him at academy. Matter of fact, I think it was Iruka that personally gave him his headband. And then there was Lord Third Hokage, she sighed, frowning as the redhead stopped in her tracks. Sorry, Tayuya. You probably already knew that, didn't you? Tayuya shook her head. No, I didn't, she said, frowning and biting her lip. This is bad. I helped Orochimaru. I basically killed. Tenten reached out and touched her shoulder. You did what any shinobi would have done, she said, making her look at the brunette. You had your orders, and you followed them, and believe me, anyone would have if you lived under that guy's rule. Still, Tayuya breathed out shakily, Naruto might hate me for this. The girl gave Tayuya a small smile. Wow, you really do like him, don't you? Tayuya sighed. That's the thing, bunny. I don't know. X equals some time during the evening as the sun was moving closer to the horizon. We find a pair of youngsters strolling out of a small theater, arm in arm, smiling, or in one case, smirking. That was such a sad movie. Sakura sighed as she leaned on Sasuke's shoulder. But thanks for taking me out tonight, Sasuke-kun, I really enjoyed it. Sasuke shrugged. It's the least I could do, he said, giving a small smile of his own. Besides, I liked it, too. Too bad, D was technically the only one that survived in the end. Where do you want to go next? Not sure, the girl said, enjoying herself nonetheless. I'm not all that hungry, but maybe we could grab a bite to eat. Sasuke agreed with her, and both ended up grabbing dango at the local stand. In the beginning, Sasuke had felt extremely awkward when the two of them met up, but Sakura had, to his surprise, easily taken the lead, and suggested the movie. Now as they ate in companionable silence, he was beginning to feel slightly awkward again. They had met up in the middle of the village, away from Sakura's house. A good thing, if one were to ask Sakura, because her parents weren't exactly thrilled about her little date with the Uchiha. Especially her father. She loved her father very much, but he had acted out of character from his usual self. When he found out that she was to go on a date with the young Uchiha, he had paled rather considerably. It was common knowledge now that Sasuke had left the village, and been brought back at the cost of several members of the village's genin, some of which had been in horrendous shape, such as Neji and Choji. Knowing this, Kazashi had feared for his daughter's safety around the young genin. But, now that their date was ending, Sasuke was intending to meet with them as he walked her back home. It was just a few blocks from her house that Sakura voiced her worries. Sasuke understood, but it was inevitable, and completely unavoidable. Now the pair stood outside of the Haruno residence. Sakura reached out, lacing her fingers through Sasuke's. You sure you want to do this? She asked, frowning, a slight blush on her face. There's still time to bolt? Sasuke shook his head. If this is gonna work, then don't I need to do this? He asked, sighing. Besides, I've seen some horrifying things thanks to my brother, so I'm not gonna chicken out from meeting your family. Don't say I didn't warn you, Sakura sighed, reaching for the door. Mom, Dad, I'm home.
No sooner had C touched the door knob than the door burst open. Sakura, I'm so glad you're a man, all but roared as he burst out the door. The man was obviously Sakura's father, given the dulled pink hair styled into the shape of a cherry blossom. He looked half crazed with worry, but all of that dropped from his face when he saw that his daughter wasn't alone. His normally warm and caring features turned cold. Oh, I see your teammate escorted you home.
I wanted to meet with you, Sasuke spoke up, only slightly intimidated. Kakashi snorted, and crossed his arms. Shouldn't you have done that before taking my precious daughter out? He asked with a frown as Sakura palmed her face with her free hand. It's traditional for a young man calling on a young lady to ask permiss. Oh. The man was suddenly blasted out the door. Sakura wisely pulled Sasuke down as her father was thrown over their heads by a well-placed kick to his lower back, sending him flying across the street. The attacker was none other than the man's own wife. Unlike her daughter, Mebuki Haruno was a caramel blonde, but had the same fair skin that Sakura had. And it painfully obvious where Sakura had gotten her temper. Oh, Sakura-chan, you've brought your friend over, she yelled enthusiastically, foregoing the fact that her husband was now across the street with his feet in the air, his head planted firmly in the ground. Please, you must bring him in for tea. Sasuke looked over his shoulder at the prone Haruno. Shouldn't we? Oh, Kakashi-kun will be fine, the man's wife tittered, ushering the two youngsters inside. He's a shinobi after all. Sasuke had a feeling that Kakashi Haruno's well-being had nothing to do with his being a shinobi, and everything to do with the fact that he was most likely used to being tossed around like that. Sasuke made himself a solemn vow that if he ever married, whether it be Sakura, or any other girl that might have caught his fancy, he would learn very quickly to never let his guard down when at home. Or else he would be in a wheelchair long before his senior years. Hey, Kakashi moaned from across the street, don't I have a say in this? Apparently not. Tenten stepped out of the shower in her little apartment, toweling her hair dry. Nothing like a nice hot shower after a day like this, she sighed as the day finally ended for her. Her and Tayuya's little talk had gone well enough, but the girl had still seemed unsure of herself when they parted. Still, it was a good thing that she'd gotten her worries out in the open. Tenten found that she liked the overly sensitive redhead a great deal once she got past the fact that she had once been an enemy. She had gone to the hospital right after they had parted to see how her teammates had been doing. Lee was still being treated for his injuries during the Chunin exams, and fighting against one of Tayuya's former teammates had only aggravated his symptoms. Neji had been released. It also worked her nerves that he hadn't told her he'd been released, either. Not that I care, she mentally grumbled as she wrapped the towel around herself. The stuck-up prick can do what he likes. So what if she'd been worried out of her mind when he was brought back and put in the ICU? Big deal. It wasn't as if she went to see him every day. Once or twice during the week had been good enough. Or was it 3? She went to her bedroom and pulled on her favorite set pajamas. Seriously, though, would it kill the guy to at least give me a heads up about getting out? She frowned when she sat on her bed. I mean, he had a huge gaping hole in his chest so close to his heart, and when he miraculously survives, and gets out, does he come and let me know? Of course not. She laid back across her bed, her arms splayed out on either side of her. The next time I see that jerk, I'll. There was a knock at her door. Tenten? Her head popped right up. And Neji? She scrambled off the bed and hurried to the door. Neji was standing there as she opened it, a bouquet of flowers in his hand, and a large blush across his face. Hello, Tenten. Hello yourself, the girl said, eyeing the flowers. Why didn't you tell me you were getting out today? I didn't know, the young Hyuga prodigy said truthfully. Tsunade-sama just cleared me this morning, and, well, I was talking with Hiyashi-sama most of the day, and… Stop, Tenten held up her hand, I get it. Clan stuff. Are those for me? She asked, indicating the flowers he held. Those aren't from Ino's flower shop, are they? Neji frowned. No, they're not, I'm sorry to say, he said, absently scratching himself behind his head. I wanted to get them from her, but she wouldn't stop asking me who they were for. I ended up picking these out of the family garden. Ino, the girl thought with a roll of her eyes as she took the flowers from him, giving them an appreciative sniff. They're pretty. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion? Neji asked, dodging the question. Giving someone flowers can mean a lot of things, Neji, Tenten stated, giggling slightly. Mostly get well presents, or saying you're sorry about something. I'm not sick, and unless you're going to apologize for worrying me to death, then you really had no reason to bring these to me at. She looked at the wall clock, 9 o'clock at night. Neji frowned when he heard the time. I suppose it is rather late, so I'll just be going. Tenten rolled her eyes as the young man turned to leave, and reached out, trapping him with her arms around his neck. Neji Hyuga, she said, her lips dangerously close to his own. You are, without a doubt, the most infuriating boy I've ever met outside Naruto Uzumaki, but I know you're not dense, so if you don't kiss me right now, I swear I'll start dating Lee. There was no hesitation as his arms went around her, his left hand taking up position behind her head as he pulled her against him. Sloppy as it was progress. Tenten had to relent that fact. The one way to get her way with Neji had always been to say it would either be him, or Lee. And it was a contest that Neji was not soon to lose. A dreamily little smile was on the girl's lips as they parted from the red-faced Hyuga. Not bad. She grinned up at him. What are your plans for tomorrow? I was told to rest, and good. Neji yelped as Tenten pulled him into her apartment, slamming the door behind him. Yuya lay staring up at the ceiling of her room, wide awake from her talk with Tenten earlier. She'd gotten home late without really meaning to, and found that Naruto was nowhere to be found inside the large house. Thinking that he was off somewhere with Jiraiya, she'd fixed herself a simple meal of cup ramen from Naruto's huge stock, and decided to soak off the day in the hot springs. But even that couldn't ease the tension she was feeling. Not in her body. No, her mind was racing over what she'd found out. Naruto did indeed have very few he could call close, and she had aided in killing one of those precious few. She rolled over onto her side, facing the pale light filtering there the rice paper doors. What would he think of me? She sighed, remembering that day like it was yesterday. She'd watched that incredible battle between 3 Hokages, and her former master. Hiruzen Sarutobi had been, in her opinion, an amazing shinobi. Even when he had been pierced through with Kusanagi, he had managed to inflict such a grievous wound on Orochimaru that he was now almost an invalid. And it was that same man that had meant so much to Naruto that she had watched die at the hands of that creature. From Tenten she had found out that Naruto spent more time with the aged Hokage than he did with Iruka Amino, often visiting with each other when he was younger, or getting chased through the village after one of his pranks. Which was how he'd come to befriend the former Hokage's grandson. It must have been like what Jinosuke Nisan was to me. She thought, thinking back on her brother figure. He had been the only person in her youth that acknowledged her, and made her feel like she was still human at times. And I helped take him away from him. She thought as she felt tears beginning to sting her eyes. How am I supposed to make that right? Knowing that she wasn't going to get any sleep, she kicked the blanket off and stood, moving to slide the screen door open, and sat down on the patio. Looking out across the compound, she saw just how greatly the Uzumaki compound had blossomed back to life under Naruto's tender care. Where once the air was nothing but crumbling houses overrun with grass, and vines stood what could have been a small village. Still, with only the two of them, the compound felt empty. Emptiness was nothing new to her. Her whole life had been as such since being taken in by Orochimaru. She hadn't even known what her reasons behind living had been save for the fear of dying by Orochimaru's twisted hands. Now that she had been away from him for so long, she was starting to feel more of what she thought a normal kunoichi was supposed to feel like. I'm lonely. She tucked her legs up against her chest, sighing. I used to like being alone, though. What the hell's happening to me? She looked up as the moon passed behind a few stray clouds. Naruto. He's like the sun. She smiled as the pale light filtered down on her once more. He's always so warm and caring, even towards me. She felt her tears spill over as she buried her face in her knees. I don't want to lose him. Meanwhile. So the seal removal is going to take place tomorrow? Tsunade asked as she sat with Jiraiya at one of their local bars. Are you sure he's ready for it? Jiraiya nodded as he took a drink from his glass. He's as ready as he'll ever be. He said, pouring himself another round. Waiting anymore would just be a waste of time. For all we know, Orochimaru could be on his way right now to try and take control of Sasuke, or Yuya. He said, taking another long drink, we'd like to take care of Anko first, and then start on Yuya. After that's done, we'll see how Naruto's faring, and take a shot at Sasuke if he's feeling up to it. I've also been asked to bring that Hyuga boy from the branch family with us. Naruto said something about helping him, too. Tsunade shook her head.